I saved her from the water. Then she came to my house. With dinner and a smile I didn't trust, I noticed her because she was the only one in that group who stopped laughing. That was the first thing. Not her looks, not the swimsuit, not the usual beach noise around her. Just that sudden change in her face, when the water pulled her too far out and she realized her feet weren't finding bottom anymore. My friends and I were on a rough stretch of beach about 40 minutes north of San Diego, the kind of place people go when they want fewer umbrellas and fewer rules. My buddy Mark had brought a cooler, Evan had brought a portable speaker that sounded like it was dying, and I had brought exactly what I usually brought anywhere in those days. Low expectations, and an excuse to leave early. I was 34, recently divorced, and doing a pretty good impression of a man who had no interest in being known by anyone new. Work, gym, house, old friends, quiet weekends. That was the program. It wasn't glamorous, but it didn't talk behind my back or come home smelling like another man's cologne, so I considered it progress. The girl was with 5 people in their early 20s, loud and careless in that way people get when they think nothing bad has ever happened because nothing bad has happened to them yet. They were throwing a football near the water, yelling over each other, filming little clips, acting like the beach was rented under their names. Then she drifted. At first, I thought she was just swimming out farther than the rest. Then she lifted one arm, not in that movie way where someone waves dramatically. It was quick, sharp. Wrong. I stood up. Mark followed my eyes. What? That girl's in trouble. He squinted. Which? The one not pretending anymore. Her friends didn't notice. One of the guys actually pointed his phone toward the water and laughed. The current was ugly, pulling sideways, not straight out, which is what makes people panic. She was fighting it the wrong way, burning herself out, her head dropping too low between breaths. "Hey!" I shouted. "Stop fighting me when I get to you!" She coughed and slapped at the water. "I can't. You can't. Stop kicking like you're mad at the ocean." That probably wasn't lifeguard-approved language, but she heard it. I got behind her, hooked an arm across her chest, and turned us sideways to the current. She grabbed at my forearm like she was trying to break it. "Easy," I snapped. "You want both of us under? I'm sorry. Apologize on land." Getting her back took longer than it should. The current kept dragging us down the beach, and every time a wave hit, she stiffened. I kept talking because panic leaves less room when someone is giving orders. "Breathe." "I am. Better." "I'm trying. Try quieter." She made a sound that might been a laugh if she hadn't swallowed half the Pacific. By the time we reached shallow water, my legs were heavy and my lungs were burning. Mark and Evan ran in to help, but I had her by then. I got her to the sand and lowered her onto her side. She coughed hard, shaking, hair stuck to her face, eyes wide and furious with fear. "You're okay," I told her. She nodded too fast. "I'm okay. I'm okay." "No, you're not, but you will be." That was when her friends finally showed up. One guy with sunglasses and a sunburned chest looked at me like I had interrupted his party. "Dude, she was fine," he said. I looked at him. "She was drowning." He gave a little laugh. "She panics sometimes." The girl pushed herself up on one elbow. "Tyler, shut up." Another girl stood behind him with her arms crossed. We thought she was joking. "Yeah," I said, getting to my feet. Water loves jokes. Tyler didn't like my tone. "You don't need to act like some hero, act like anything. I need you to understand that if your friend almost disappears under the water and your first instinct is to film it, you should spend some time alone with that information." His mouth opened, then closed. The girl sitting on the sand looked at me then, really looked. She was young, early 20s, but not childish. Pretty, yes, more than pretty. But what hit me was the way embarrassment and anger were fighting through the fear on her face. "Thank you," she said, voice rough. I nodded. "Don't swim with people who confuse attention with help." Mark tossed me a towel. I took it, wiped my face, and turned away. "Wait," she called. I didn't. Evan caught up beside me. "You're not staying?" "No. You just dragged a woman out of the ocean. And now she's on land. That's the part I signed up for." Mark looked back over his shoulder. "She's staring at you." "Good. She can confirm I'm walking." I meant it too. I had no interest in being anyone's dramatic beach memory. I'd done the rescue. I'd said what needed saying. I'd put my truck in reverse and left before the situation turned into names, numbers, stories, and that strange look women sometimes give men after danger passes and adrenaline starts pretending to be destiny. I had already survived one version of destiny. It came with a wedding album and a very expensive lesson. So I drove home, showered, threw my wet clothes in the laundry, and told myself that was the end of it. That lie lasted about 26 hours. The next evening, I was standing in my kitchen trying to decide whether leftover chicken counted as a meal or a warning sign when someone knocked on my front door. I wasn't expecting anyone. My friends never knocked. Mark walked in like he paid property tax. Evan texted from the driveway because he didn't want to stand up too soon. I opened the door. She stood on. Hi. I looked past her to the street. Please tell me the ocean didn't follow you? No. Just me. How did you get my address? She lifted one of the bags. That's your first question? It's currently winning. She shifted her weight. Your truck. I remembered the plate. My roommate's cousin works at a registration office. I stared at her. She winced. That sounded worse out loud. It did not sound fantastic in my head either. I know, it's weird, but I didn't get to thank you. You thanked me. Barely. I was coughing up salt water, traditional but accepted. She looked down at the bags. I brought dinner. I guessed you were the kind of man who eats meat, potatoes, and emotional distance. That caught me off guard. I almost smiled. Almost. What's your name? Grace. Grace, showing up at a stranger's house because he pulled you out of the water is not the safest hobby. You're not a stranger. I am absolutely a stranger. You told Tyler he should spend time alone with his choices. That gave me a rough outline, not enough for a background check. She held my stare. You could close the door. I could have. I should have. Instead, I stepped aside. 10 minutes, I said. She walked in carefully, not like she owned the place, not like she was afraid either. She glanced around once and stopped at the kitchen island. Nice house. Thanks. You live alone? That question's doing push-ups on the edge of inappropriate. She put the bags down. Sorry. I'm not great at this. At finding addresses or talking to men who don't want visitors? Both, apparently. I pulled 2 plates from the cabinet because my manners were stronger than my survival instincts. She unpacked roast chicken, mashed potatoes, salad, and a container of something that looked homemade. You cook? I asked. It felt too official. She told me she was 23 before I asked, which was probably intentional. I told her I was 34 because hiding it would have been pointless. She didn't flinch. Too old? I asked. She cut a piece of chicken. For what? For surprise porch dinners with women who track down license plates. She looked at me over her fork. Probably. But here we are. I should found that annoying. I didn't. She asked what I did for work. I told her I handled project management for a construction company, mostly commercial renovations. She said she worked at a veterinary clinic while taking classes part-time and that she was tired of guys her age who thought having a mattress on the floor was a personality. That's a low bar, I said. You'd be amazed how many limbo under it. I laughed then. Couldn't help it. She noticed and looked pleased, which irritated me because I didn't like being readable. So you're friends, I said. Still your friends? She stabbed at her salad. That group? Not really. My roommate invited me. Tyler's her boyfriend's friend. Strong recommendation. Yeah. He came with a warning label. I ignored it. You learned. I did. Her face shifted then, the humor dropping away. They laughed after you left, she said. Not all of them, but enough. Tyler said I made a scene. He said you wanted attention. I set my fork down, and what did you say? I said if he ever spoke to me again, I'd make a bigger scene. I liked that answer more than I wanted to. Good. She studied me. You really didn't want anything from me. No, that's rare. It shouldn't be. But it is. The room got quiet. Not awkward exactly, just too personal for a woman who had been a near stranger yesterday and was eating chicken in my kitchen tonight. She looked at my bare left hand, then away. Too late. I gave a dry little smile. Go ahead. What? You saw the recent? Recent enough that my toaster has seen me eat dinner standing up too many times. Bad? Most divorces aren't team-building exercises. She nodded and didn't push. That mattered. A lot of people push because they confuse access with intimacy. Grace didn't. She let the answer sit where it landed. By 10:30, the 10 minutes had become 3 hours. She helped me clean up without making a performance of it. At the door, she wrote her number on a napkin from the takeout bag and held it out. In case you decide I'm less dangerous than I seem. I took it. That's a crowded competition. Call me. I didn't say I would. I noticed. She stepped onto the porch, then turned back. Thank you again, Cole. I hadn't told her my name at the beach. Mark must have yelled it. Or maybe I had said it that night without noticing. Drive safe, Grace. After she left, I stood at the counter with the napkin in my hand. I stared at the number for a while. Then I dropped it in the trash. It wasn't dramatic. I didn't make a speech to my empty kitchen. I just knew myself. I knew how fast good conversations become expectations. I knew how quickly a woman's laughter can start sounding like a future you didn't agree to build. So I threw it away and went to bed. 2 days later, she came back. This time she didn't bring food. This time she looked mad. I opened the door and she pointed at me before I could speak. You threw it away. I looked at her hand. Nice to see you too. My number. You threw it away. That's a confident accusation. You didn't call. Phones work both ways. Though in your case, apparently addresses work better. She didn't laugh. You could have said you weren't interested. I did. No, you acted like you were interested for 3 hours, then decided all by yourself that I couldn't handle a straight answer. That's not what happened. Really how it starts. How what starts? Something messy. She let out a sharp breath. Wow. You have a whole disaster packed and ready. You're 23, and you're 34. You don't know me. I'm trying to. I saved you because you needed help. That's it. It wasn't an audition. Her jaw tightened. You think I came here because I owe you. I think gratitude does strange things after fear. She stared at me like I had slapped the food out of her hands. No, she said. Don't make me smaller because it makes your life easier. That one landed. I kept my voice even. Grace, I'm not the man you build some rescue fantasy around. Good. I don't want a fantasy. I want one normal date with the man who told my idiot friends the truth and then ran away like he had a meeting with a cave. I didn't run. You left so fast I thought your truck had wings. I looked over her shoulder at the street because looking at her directly was getting less convenient. I'm not doing this. She stepped back. Fine. Good. She walked down 2 steps, then turned around. But I'm not done, she called. You can keep pretending this is about my age or gratitude or whatever word makes you feel safe. I'm telling you I'm interested in you. Not the rescue. Not the drama. You. And I'm not disappearing because you got scared of a phone number. I don't scare that easy. She smiled without humor. Then prove it. Take me on a normal date. I shut the door. Not slammed. Shut. Then I stood there with my hand on the knob, feeling exactly as stupid as I deserved. The next day I met Mark and Evan for lunch near a job site. We sat outside with sandwiches, and I made the mistake of telling them. Mark almost choked. You threw away her number? Yes. Evan leaned back. After she brought dinner? Yes. And she came back? Yes. And asked you out? Technically, said. He's right. What are you doing? I'm avoiding complications. Mark snorted. You're avoiding a woman because your ex-wife had the loyalty of a parking ticket. Careful. He put the sandwich down. His voice changed. I am being careful. You got burned. Bad. We all saw it. But Grace didn't do that to you. I know that, do you? Because you're treating her like she broke into your life when she knocked on the front door with mashed potatoes. She tracked my plate. Evan lifted a hand. We all agree that part was unhinged. Thank you. But, he added, sometimes unhinged is just courage wearing bad shoes. Mark looked at him. That was terrible. It was heartfelt. It was a crime. I rubbed my forehead. She's too young. She's an adult, Mark said. You're an adult. Nobody's asking you to buy matching sweaters tomorrow. Evan nodded. Go on one date. Public place, normal hour. Keep your kidney. I didn't answer. Mark leaned closer. Your ex took enough. Don't hand her your future too, just because it feels noble to be alone. That shut me up. Because he was right, and I hated that. Grace showed up again that evening at 6:30. This time I opened the door before she knocked twice. She blinked. Were you waiting? No. You opened the door like a man who rehearsed. I was near it. Doing what? Door-related work. She almost smiled. I took a breath. Dinner. Friday. 7. Somewhere public, so if you decide I'm unbearable, witnesses can confirm it. Her eyes widened just enough. Are you serious? Yes. No pity date? I don't do pity. Too much scheduling. She looked at me for a second, then nodded. Okay. Friday? And Grace? Yeah? No more surprise visits after this. She folded her arms. After this? After tonight. So you're saying there may be reasons to visit later. I'm saying don't push. Food was good, and the tables weren't so close that strangers could hear your regrets. I got there early because I'm a grown man, and because nerves make me punctual. Grace walked in at 7:02. She looked beautiful in a simple way that made me forget the first sentence I had prepared. Not flashy, not trying too hard. Just a woman who knew she was stepping into something uncertain and came anyway. You're early, she said. You're late. 2 minutes. Cheo starts small. She sat across from me. Do you always make everything sound like a building inspection? Only when I'm uncomfortable. That slipped out before I could stop it. She looked down at the menu, giving me a second. I noticed that too. We ordered. We made small talk first because adults who jump straight into trauma over appetizers should be reported to management. She told me about the clinic, about a stubborn bulldog who hated everybody except her, about classes she wasn't sure she wanted to finish. I told her about work, about subcontractors who treated deadlines like folklore, about Mark once installing a cabinet upside down and defending it for 10 minutes. She laughed easily, but not constantly. She listened. She didn't fill every pause just because it existed. Halfway through dinner, she set her fork down. Can I ask you something without you disappearing into your emotional bunker? Depends how sturdy the question is. Why did you throw away my number? There it was. I could have made a joke. I almost did. Then I thought about Mark saying my ex had already taken enough. My marriage ended because my wife chose someone else while still living in my house, I said. Not once. Not by accident. Not in some confusing movie way. She made choices, hid them, and expected me to be grateful for half-truths when I found out. Grace didn't interrupt. Nice. The other part thinks, here comes the part where you get stupid again. She sat back slowly. That's why you were cold. That's why I was rude. Cold is more polished. I'm sorry. You didn't do it. No, but I'm sorry it happened. That sounded simple. No big speech. No performance. Just honest. I nodded once. Thank you. She touched the base of her water glass with 2 fingers. For what it's worth, I'm not here because you pulled me out of the water. You sure? Yes. How? Because the rescue was terrifying. I don't think about it and feel romantic. I think about it and feel stupid for trusting the wrong people. But dinner at your house? You didn't try to impress me. You didn't flirt like you were collecting points. You asked normal questions and made sarcastic comments about potato texture. The potatoes were too smooth. They were excellent. They were suspicious. She smiled. That's what I liked. I leaned back. Potato criticism, among other things. The space between us changed then. Not dramatically. No music swelled. But something dropped. A guard, maybe. Hers or mine. Probably both. After dinner, we walked to our cars. The air had cooled and neither of us seemed in a hurry. At her car, she turned and looked at me. I had a good time. Me too. You sound surprised. I am. At me? At me. She nodded like she understood enough not to ask for more. I stepped closer, not much. She didn't move away. I'm going to be slow, I told her. I'm not asking you to be fast. I'm going to be suspicious of things I shouldn't be suspicious of. I'll call you out. That does seem to be a hobby. She smiled, but her voice softened. Cole, I'm not 23 because I'm careless. I'm just 23. There's a difference. I looked at her then. Really looked. You're right. I know. Modesty, too. And because she stood there giving me every chance not to. It was brief, careful. But when I pulled back, she stayed close for one extra second. Then she whispered, "That was better than not calling." I laughed. High bar. It was for you. We started seeing each other after that. Slowly at first. Coffee after my workday. Dinner on a Tuesday. A walk where she made fun of my playlist and then saved 3 songs from it. She came to my house again, this time invited, and she stood in the kitchen like she remembered where everything was from that first night. I met her roommate Lindsay, who looked me over and said, "So you're the responsible older man. I've been called worse." Good, because if you're secretly awful, I'm annoying. Grace pointed at her. She means that. I respect a clear threat, I said. Those weeks were good, better than good, which made them dangerous. Grace didn't push for labels immediately, but she also didn't act casual to protect her pride. She wanted to see me, so she said so. She missed me, so she texted. If she was irritated, she didn't bury it under cute silence. One night, while we were making dinner at my place, she watched me slice tomatoes and said, "You know you don't have to keep waiting for the trapdoor." I paused. What? You do this thing when things feel nice. You look around like someone's about to charge you for it. I set the knife down. That's specific. I've had time to observe. You're not that mysterious. I'm wearing layers. You're wearing a gray t-shirt and emotional caution tape. I laughed despite myself. She moved beside me and took the knife. Go stir the sauce before you supervise the tomatoes into witness protection. I stepped back, bossy. Alive, she said. There's a difference. The first time she stayed late enough that leaving felt awkward. Nothing had door, she said. I should go. You should. Do you want me to? No. She looked at the floor, then back at me. Good answer, but I want this clean. She nodded. Me too. Not cold. Clean. I know what you mean. She drove home. I watched until her taillights disappeared, then went back inside and stood in my quiet house, realizing it didn't feel peaceful the same way anymore. It felt empty. That scared me more than the water ever had. The trouble started with her parents. She had mentioned them before. Robert and Diane Mitchell. Conservative, protective, church on Sundays, dinner together twice a month, opinions available with no subscription fee. She loved them. That was obvious. She also braced herself before answering their calls, which told me plenty. They found out about me because Grace told them. No dramatic accident, no overheard secret. She sat in their kitchen and said she was seeing someone. Then she said my age, then divorced. Then they stopped hearing anything else. She called me afterward from her car. Well, she said, that went about as smoothly as dropping a fork in a garbage disposal. I sat up on the couch. What happened? My mother asked if this was because I almost drowned and needed therapy. She may not be wrong about the therapy part. Cole, sorry. Continue. My dad asked what kind of 34-year-old man dates a woman my age. I didn't answer right away. Grace noticed. Don't do that. Do what? Agree with him silently. I didn't. You did in your head. I heard it through the phone. I rubbed my jaw. They're your parents. They're allowed to worry. They're allowed to worry. They're not allowed to decide. Did they ask to meet me? No. They asked me to stop seeing you. There it was. The clean line. And what did you say? I said packing a bag. That was too accurate. Over the next 2 weeks, her parents made themselves impossible to ignore. Her mother called during our dinners. Her father needed help with things exactly when we had plans. Family lunches appeared out of nowhere. Her younger cousin's birthday became an emergency obligation. Her mother showed up at the clinic with coffee and questions. Grace tried to laugh it off at first. My mom asked if you own cargo shorts, she told me one night. Do I fail or pass if I do? Depends how many pockets. Enough to carry my red flags. She smiled, but she looked tired. Another time we were supposed to go to a movie. 10 minutes before I left, she called. I'm sorry, I already knew. What happened? My dad's truck won't start, and only you can repair it. No, but apparently only I can stand next to it while he complains about repair costs. I heard voices in the background. Go, I said. I don't want to cancel again. I know. I'm not choosing them over you. I didn't say you were, you thought it. I thought your dad has excellent timing. She let out a frustrated breath. I hate this. Handle what's in front of you. We'll reschedule. After we hung up, I sat there in my jacket for a while. The old part of me, the part built after my divorce, started making its case. See? Complicated. Messy, family drama, expectations. This is how it starts. You become the problem in someone else's life, then one day they look at you like you ruined everything. The next Saturday, she came over and looked exhausted before she even sat down. My mom cried today, she said. About us? About me throwing away my life, her words. I leaned against the kitchen counter. That's heavy. She said I'm confusing gratitude with love. I hated that word in their mouths. Gratitude. Like Grace couldn't tell the difference between. That one hit where it was meant to. Grace watched me. Say something, I didn't. Cole. I don't want to make your life harder. Her face changed. No. You're fighting your parents every week. Because they're wrong. Maybe. But they're still your parents. And you're still doing it. Doing what? Backing toward the exit. I looked away. She stood up. Don't you dare make this noble. I'm not. Yes, you are. You're about to say we should take a pause so I can think clearly, or protect my relationship with my family, or some other mature sentence that sounds responsible and smells like fear. I hated how well she knew the shape of my escape. Maybe a pause isn't the worst idea, I said. Her mouth tightened. There it was. Damage delivered. She nodded slowly. Okay. Grace, no, let's examine that. A pause from what? From dinner? From calls? From feeling something you didn't plan? From me becoming real enough to inconvenience you? That's not fair. It's very fair. I kept my voice low. I'm trying not to cost you your family. You don't get to decide what my choices cost. I'm not deciding. You are. You're trying to remove yourself from the equation and call it respect. I didn't answer because there was no good lie available. She picked up her purse. Where are you going? Home. Grace. She stopped the door. I fought my parents because I believe in what this is. You fought a phone number and lost. So forgive me if I'm not inspired by your leadership right now. That one hurt. She opened the door. I'm not asking you to save me, Cole. I'm asking you to stand there with me. If that's too much, say it plainly. Then she left. I didn't follow her, not right away. That was my mistake. I spent the next hour telling myself I was being reasonable. Then I spent the hour after that realizing reasonable can be a coward's visits, she said. I know, that rule was yours. I'm breaking it with respect. She leaned on the door. That sounds like something a man says before making it worse. I'm sorry. Her face didn't soften immediately. Good. It shouldn't have, I continued. You were right. I tried to make leaving sound protective. It wasn't. It was me seeing pressure and reaching for the old emergency exit. She crossed her arms. And now? Now I'm here. That's not an answer. No, it's the start of one. I took a breath. I don't want to pause. I don't want to step back. I'm not going to ask you to choose me over your parents, and I'm not going to hide like I'm something you should be ashamed of. If you want me beside you, I'm beside you. She looked at me for a long moment. You mean that? Yes. Even if they're cold? Yes. Even if my dad gives you that quiet, disappointed look he uses on waiters and weather reports. I've survived city inspectors. Your dad can bring his best eyebrow. She almost smiled, then swallowed it. I'm still mad. You should be. I'm not going to keep dragging you back every time you panic. I know. I need a man, not a rescue project. I agree. Her eyes searched my face, testing whether I was saying the right thing or the true thing. Finally, she stepped aside. Come in for 10 minutes. I walked in. Dangerous number. Shut up. Yes, Mom. We sat on her couch, not touching at first. Then her hand found mine, and that small contact felt bigger than it should have. Trust can be quiet when it comes back. It doesn't always kick the door down. The next day, she called her parents and put them on speaker while I sat beside her at my kitchen table. She didn't do it for drama. She did it because she said she needed me to hear that she wasn't hiding. Her mother answered first. Grace, Mom, I need you and Dad to listen. A pause. Is he there? Her father's voice came on. Grace, this man is too old for you. He's 11 years older. He is divorced. So are half the adults in California. That is not the point. No, the point is you decided who he was before you met him. Her mother said, we're trying to protect you. I know. But you're not protecting me by controlling my calendar and insulting someone I care about. Care about, Diane repeated. Yes, her father's voice hardened. You barely know him. Grace closed her eyes for half a second, then meet him. Silence. She kept going. One dinner. You invite us. You ask your questions. You look him in the face. If after that you still have concerns, we can talk. But if you refuse, then I'm moving out of this halfway place where I'm an adult until you disagree. You would stop speaking to us over him? Her mother asked. No, I would stop letting you punish me for choosing him. My hand tightened around hers. Robert spoke slowly. And if we say no, then I'll pack what's still at your house this weekend and take space from both of you. Her mother sounded shaken. Grace, I mean it. There was a long silence, a real one. Finally Robert said, dinner, Thursday. 6. Grace exhaled. And Cole, Robert added, saying my name like it tasted unfamiliar. I expect honesty. I leaned toward the phone. You'll get it. Good. The call ended. Grace stared at the phone. Then she looked at me. I think I'm going to throw up. Want water? I want new parents for about 48 hours. Can't help there. She laughed once, weakly, and leaned into me. I put my arm around her. You did that, I said. We did that. No, you did. I was furniture with a pulse. Supportive furniture. Top quality. Thursday came faster than I wanted. I wore a clean button-down, brought flowers for Diane, and parked in front of the Mitchell's single-story house in a quiet neighborhood where every lawn looked like it had signed a behavior contract. Diane opened the door. She was polite in the way people are polite when they've decided warmth is legally optional. Cole. Mrs. Mitchell. I handed her the flowers. Thank you for having me. She took them. Come in. Robert stood in the living room, tall, solid gray at the temples, handshake firm enough to make a point, but not childish enough to crush fingers. Cole. Mr. Mitchell. Robert is fine, then Cole is fine. Grace glanced at me like she appreciated that. Dinner started stiff. Diane had made pot roast, vegetables, rolls, good food. Hard room. Robert asked about my work and I answered directly. Diane asked about my divorce and Grace stiffened beside me. It ended last year, I said. Why? Diane asked. Mom, Grace warned. It's a fair question, I said. I set my fork down. My former wife chose to build a life outside our marriage and lie about it. When I found out, I ended the marriage. Robert watched me. No children? No. Diane looked at Grace. That kind of history follows a person. It can, I said. She seemed surprised. I agreed. I continued, that's why I was careful with Grace. Maybe too careful. I didn't chase her. I didn't pressure her. If anything, I tried to keep distance longer than I should have. Grace muttered, that is one way to describe throwing away my number. Diane blinked. You threw away her number? Yes, I said. Robert looked at his daughter. Why? Grace took a sip of water. Because he was being difficult. Because I was being cautious, I corrected. Difficult, she repeated. I looked at Robert. Both may be true. For the first time all evening, Robert almost smiled. Diane didn't. Grace is young, she said. Grace put her fork down. I'm here. I know. No. You're talking like I'm. Voice stayed controlled. Then tell us the whole story. Grace looked at me. I knew what was coming, and I didn't want it used like a medal, but it was her story too. More hers than mine. She turned back to them. The day I met Cole, I almost drowned. Diane froze. Robert's fork stopped halfway to his plate. What? Diane whispered. At the beach, I got caught in a current. I couldn't get back. The people I was with didn't help. Tyler laughed. Someone had a phone out. Cole saw it from down the beach and came in after me. Diane's face changed in pieces. Confusion first. Then fear arriving late. Then the kind of horror parents feel when they realize they were not there when their child needed them. Grace kept her voice steady. He pulled me out. He told my friends exactly what they were. Then he left. He didn't ask for my number. He didn't flirt. He didn't even wait for me to make it dramatic. He just left. Robert looked at me. You didn't mention this? No. Why not? Because I'm not dating your daughter as payment for dragging her out of the water. The room went quiet. Grace reached for my hand under the table. Diane's eyes filled, but she held herself together. Grace, why didn't you tell us? Because I knew you'd turn it into fear and control. And because I was embarrassed. I trusted stupid people. I almost paid for it. Robert pushed his chair back slightly. He didn't stand. He just needed space. Those friends, he said. Do you still see them? No. Good. He looked at me again. The suspicion wasn't gone, but it had cracked. Behind it was something heavier. You went into a rip current for someone you didn't know. Yes. Why? I shrugged once. She was in trouble. That's it? That should be enough. Robert looked down at his plate. Diane covered her mouth for a second, then lowered her hand. Thank you. I nodded. You're welcome. No. Her voice broke slightly, and she steadied it. I mean it. Asked. I didn't know what to do with that kind of gratitude, so I did what I knew. She did most of the work by listening, I said. Grace gave me a look. I was half drowned. You still followed directions. Barely. Barely counts in the ocean. Robert let out a short breath that was almost a laugh. Then he looked at Grace. I wish you had told us. I wish you had asked who he was before deciding. That landed. Diane nodded slowly. You're right, she said. We were scared, I know, and unfair. Grace didn't rescue her from that, she let it sit. Robert leaned forward, hands clasped. Cole, I'm not going to pretend I'm completely comfortable in one evening. I wouldn't believe you if you did. But I was wrong to assume the worst. I appreciate that. He looked at Grace. And you are right. You're an adult. Your mother and I need to do better with that. Diane reached across the table. Grace took her hand. We want to know him, Diane said. Properly. Not as an emergency. Grace nodded. That's all I asked. Actually, I said, you asked with an ultimatum. Grace turned to me. Not the time. Robert surprised me by saying, no, he's right. Diane sighed. It was a very clear ultimatum. Grace smiled a little. I learned from Dad. Robert nodded. Fair. The dinner didn't turn into a perfect family movie after that. Nobody hugged over dessert. Robert still asked me where I saw my life going, which is a question men ask when they're trying not to ask whether you're wasting their daughter's time. Diane still watched Grace and me like she was adjusting to a new map, but the room changed. By the time we left, Diane walked us to the door and gave me a careful hug. Robert shook my hand again, not harder this time. Sunday lunch, he said, a full minute. Then she said, well, that was awful. I laughed. And good, she added. Both may be true. She looked at me, and there was that same stubborn brightness I'd seen on my porch, except now it had more weight behind it. Thank you for coming. Thank you for not letting me run. I was not going to chase you forever. I know. I mean that. I know that too. She reached across the console and took my hand. Good, good. 2 weeks later, she moved into my house. Not in a reckless movie-ending way. We talked it through. We made lists. She kept some things at Lindsay's for a while because she said adults should have backup plans even when they're happy. I respected that. Honestly, I admired it. The day she brought her boxes over, Mark and Evan helped because they wanted free pizza and because they had appointed themselves witnesses to my emotional recovery. Mark carried in a box labeled kitchen and said, where do you want the evidence that you're no longer dying alone? Garage. Grace pointed at him. Kitchen. He looked at me. She outranks you already. She arrived with better labeling. Evan set down a lamp. I still think the license plate thing was alarming. Grace nodded. Completely fair. Thank you. But effective. He thought about it. Also fair. Her parents came by that evening with a set of towels Diane claimed were extras. They were new. Robert pretended not to notice that I knew. He helped me adjust a sticking cabinet door while Grace and her mother arranged things in the kitchen. At one point, Robert said quietly, she seems happy here. I tightened a screw. She is. You? I looked through the open doorway. Grace was laughing at something Diane said, holding a stack of plates, comfortable in a way my house had never seen before. Yeah, I said. I am. Robert nodded. Good. That was all. No beach. Not because I believed the ocean handed me a love story. That sounds nice, but real life is less tidy. I thought about it because one decision led to another. I saw someone in trouble, and I moved. She saw a man trying to disappear, and she refused to let him hide behind a locked door and a trash can full of phone numbers. Grace didn't heal me by being young or pretty or grateful. She didn't fix my past. She didn't erase what my ex-wife did. What she did was much harder. She showed up, told the truth, pushed back when I got scared, and made her own choice even when the people she loved didn't understand it. And I learned that being careful is smart until it becomes a cage with furniture. Now my house is louder. There are shoes by the door that aren't mine. There's coffee I don't drink in the cabinet. There's a woman in my kitchen who still argues with me about potatoes and still looks at me like I'm solid ground. Some mornings, she kisses my cheek on her way to the clinic and says, "Try not to rescue anyone before lunch." And I tell her, no promises. Because the truth is, I didn't save Grace and then get rewarded with love. I saved her once. Then she came back and saved me from spending the rest of my life pretending I didn't need anyone. Would you have trusted Grace after she showed up at the door like that? Do you think her parents were wrong to interfere? Or just scared?